Another, this one here really do it for you.
Baby, the love is yours. Yeah, baby, I'm yours. If it come down to love is yours. Let me show you how to love is yours. Love, 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 love is yours. Love is yours. Love is yours. Love is yours.
Now it's my turn to tell y'all about my big bro Gerard and the podcast crew.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Floor is Yours podcast. So we're doing this one a little different. We got a special guest in here, a great man, Brother Fred McCullough. And I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself here in a moment. But hey, y'all know the house rules. We need everybody out there, if you will, to be sure that you like, subscribe, share this show. We want to make sure that we're doing what we can to help read the masses. But we got another hot topic. I think all of them are hot, but this one right here is near and dear to me. We're talking about something that's titled The Great Switch. And part of that is going to be talking about how blacks back in the 60s, when they left what overwhelmingly they was part of the Republican Party and they joined the Democratic Party. So Brother Fred McCullough, he's a historian, man, very, very smart individual. He's going to walk us through some of that on how it happened, why it happened, and some of the ramifications of it. But again, we need y'all to help us reach the masses. So if you would, though, Brother Fred, go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you to the show.
All right. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you, my friend, for offering me the opportunity to be on your show. My name is Frederick McCullough. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, moved to Tampa, Florida, and I was there until my college age, and I did some time in college in Kansas, did some college time in a little bit of time in Gainesville, Florida for education. I've done some everything, been a correctional officer, played a little sports, educated, taught in a small level of middle school, and I've also taught on the collegiate level. I spend most of my time trying to do more humanitarian things. I'm a member of a Masonic organization that I hold in high regard, and I just love people, especially mine.
Hey, for sure, man. I appreciate you joining us, and I forgot that you was from old Motown up there, man. So that's a big move, right? Coming from the north to the south.
Yes, it was a big coaching shot.
Yeah. Hey, so while we tee up the discussion, it seems like we got a little disconnect. So if you don't mind, Brother Fred, can you go out and come back in the show, and and hopefully that'll fix the connection issue.
No problem.
Okay. And while he's doing that, hey, y'all know the name of the game. This is the Floor is Yours podcast, where we make sure that we give you an opportunity to voice your concerns, ask you questions, and all that. Again, this is a title that's near and dear to me. All you got to do is just pay attention to what's going on in the world. Politics is a big thing right now, so we want to make sure that we're not just out here just aimlessly making comments, not understanding the gravitude of our comments. And one of the biggest things that I notice that's going on out there is this big battle between Republicans and Democrats. And me myself personally, I'm not affiliated with any specific party. I do tend to vote a certain way because of the ideals of a particular party. But we're going to talk about a lot of that. And Brother Fred, you're back. I'm going to give you again opportunity to talk about your move from the north to the south, and then we'll go into the discussion.
Okay. Well, like I said, man, it was a culture shock. Going from a city like Detroit to a city like Tampa, it was. I was a teenager. I was 17. So that older teenage years when everything that you know is the only thing that's right. And going from the mindset of Detroit, which was if it's not still the blackest city in America, it's one of them, and it was at that time. But going from a city like that to a city where you're of the numbers, like Tampa, there was a large black population, but blacks, I don't think African Americans in Tampa was probably about 45% or something to that number. It wasn't as big as it
So
was
let
in
me ask you,
Detroit.
how
So
different were the mindsets between blacks in the North, specifically Detroit, versus when you came to the South? Did you notice a difference in people ideologies, passions?
the first thing that I witnessed when I went from Detroit to Tampa was the attitudes of the African Americans. When you saw another black person in Tampa, everybody spoke.
Yeah.
Whereas in Detroit, if you speak to somebody, you got a problem because they like, what you talking to me for? So that's just the idea. That's just the mindset of how it was in the Midwest at that particular time, or most northern American cities. Whereas the South, they're a little more genuine, a little more friendly. I mean, you can still catch an attitude if you went to some of the more urban areas. You know how it could be anywhere you go. All ghettos are the
Yeah,
same.
for sure, for
So
sure. And we got some of our regulars on here. My good friend, brother Ron Barnett, appreciate you tuning in. He's saying what up. And also my
all
from
right, my
another
brother.
Mr. Carlica Bassanite Mendez. We call her C to Z, right? That's the long name she got, but man, she's a regular on here too, and a participant as well. Appreciate you for
Okay.
tuning in. But again, this topic is I'm passionate about it. I know you are too. We've had some extended conversations about it.
Yeah.
And I was telling you, man, it was like I was in college listening to the professor, man, as you gave some understandings behind a lot of what's going on right now. And I definitely wanted to bring you on and help share your understanding, a lot of it is opinions, but there are educated opinions as well. But the why behind the what of a lot of what's going on. So, the title says The Great Switch. And we know back in the 60s that the majority of black people were part of the Republican Party. But something happened. Something happened that made us exit that party and become Democrats. Can you talk about that?
Well, one of the biggest things that we know was that Kennedy was in the forefront of civil rights. And Johnson actually was able to take over the mantle of Kennedy based on him being assassinated while in office and him being the vice president.
And some people that might not be history buffs like you, when you say Kennedy, you're talking about JFK, John F. Kennedy.
John F. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, John F. Kennedy. So when he was assassinated during his term in office, Johnson, being his vice president, of course, took over. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of people on either side that really, they thought that Johnson was, he was a capable person to be president. And they weren't sure exactly where his ideologies were, because prior to him running for office himself, Martin Luther King Jr., that is, attempted to have his ear, and he turned him away on numerous occasions because, he said he had larger political fish to fry. During his impact conferences that he would have with his cabinet, they said that the only way that he would probably win the election is if he had another demographic that was added to his constituency. And at that time, the largest affiliation to anything other than, what he was affiliated with the Democratic Party, was Martin Luther King and his constituents. So one of the things that he decided to go ahead and do is let him have his ear. Now, majority of African Americans at this particular time were Republicans based on it being the party of Abraham Lincoln, which, of course, when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation freeing the slaves, of course, people were going to buy into that. And he actually was able to add more people to his constituency, which in turn is the reason why the fall of the Confederacy was able to be done. Once they were removed from slavery, which, it's a lot of misnomers about that too. But when there was a lot of things that that transpired, once they were freed, they looked at Lincoln as being their savior. A lot of African Americans did, because slavery was it was abolished. So a lot of people wanted to become Republicans based on that, which was understandable. But over the course of time, the names of different parties, it changed. But at this particular time, Johnson needed the assistance of Martin Luther King and his constituents in order to vote for him, in order to get him back in office. They said they needed something, which is the reason why our 1963 yes, it was forced. It was first drawn up in 1964, which eventually came into law, was our 1965 Civil Rights Bill. So once that was actually signed, it gave African Americans the freedoms in order to vote, the freedoms in order to do so many things that we weren't afforded to be able to do, that we weren't able to do previously. So the compromise was they would join the Democratic Party in return for him, since he was the president that was still in office at the time. If he signed, was able to go ahead and get that passed, they would be more than happy to join.
So that's not small.
That's
not small.
What's
like
that?
Him signing the Civil Rights Bill, which we talked about that. It's ridiculous anyway, right? Considering that it never should have happened. But however, it was. Right. But in return, he's going to get the support from MLK Jr. and his constituents to support him in the Democratic Party. Okay,
that's correct. So, with that being said, that caused an uproar within the Democratic Party. And a majority of the individuals in both the Senate and Congress both told Johnson they would leave the party if he brought them in. He went ahead and did that. That's when the party shifted. And it was the individuals that we know as not the Democrats, but the Dixiecrats. Those are the ones that jumped ship from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party, which is why there's now such a staunch racist overview in the Republican Party.
So, it sounds simple, but is it really that simple? There were some people that were upset because of the Civil Rights Bill. So the Dixiecrats left and they became Republicans. So that's kind of the great switch right there, is where the blacks left.
That's where that was the beginning of it. That was the beginning of it. Yes. So, as things progressed, things became the Republicans were traditionally more conservative individuals. The idea of the Republican Party was to keep everything small, simple, but in an orderly fashion, which in most of our ideas of being in our lives, we have more of a conservative ideology than the so-called Democrats. The Democrats' idea was supposed to be fast, progressive, moving, changing, and ever evolving, which is a good idea too, because everything needs to be shaken up, because if the thing stays one way too long, it becomes stagnant and eventually will die. I can understand how both parties actually have a play in what takes place. What I don't appreciate is a lot of our Democrats and Republicans that believe that one way is going to swing, it's going to have more weight to swing one way more than the other.
Yeah. But with that being said, there are some ideologies, if you will, some ways of thinking that are anti-humanity, if you will.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And the reason why I bring this up, because I heard this a lot, and I shared it with you, that these are just two peas in the same pot. And me personally, I don't agree with that. While there may be some ideals and some ways and principles on both that may not be advantageous to us, I think that they are fundamentally differences in each party, that I understand why certain races, the black race in particular, could overwhelmingly reject the other party.
Yes. Yes, I can understand that as well. But one of the biggest things that we do as humans, we look at the individuals that are stacked inside of the organization and we base our opinion on that.
Yeah.
But in this, just like anything that you guys, just like anything that people need to understand. So, okay, take political office. We hated, most African Americans, shall I say, hated when Donald Trump was in office.
Hmm. Hmm.
Did they hate the presidency or did they hate Donald Trump?
I think it was. I mean, that's the easy one in my mind. It was his behaviors. It was his
Okay, so yeah,
yeah,
so it was the individual,
individual. Yeah.
not the seat, not the seat. It was the individual.
Yeah.
If we can think objectively across all political boundaries and understand the office itself is not the problem, it's the person sitting in the
Right.
seat.
Yeah.
So once we can understand that if you are an African American and you have conservative views, you may be in line to be a Republican.
Yeah.
And just look at the party itself and what the party itself has to explain. Now,
Yeah.
you could be an African American that have more of a more liberal view. Democratic Party is probably you want to be, but don't be in there based on the people that you see. Now, there are more individuals that are of other races other than African American that are in the Democratic Party, and they're doing things in order for humanitarianism, opposed to
Yeah.
just African American, and they love everybody consistently across the board. Yes, they have those ideas, but if you're in line with that sort of thinking, meaning the progressiveness, trying to things, watching things evolve, continuously evolving, Democratic Party is probably where you want to be. But
Yeah.
in my personal opinions, nobody else's, just mine. The only way that African Americans are going to be able to move forward is we're going to have to come together to form our own party. And the reason why I say we need to form our own party is not to say that we disevolve, we're dissolving our ideology or we're trying to separate ourselves. But if you think about every uh, culture, whether it be Cuban societies or Greek, the Greek Orthodox societies and the Germans, and you can go in pretty much any city and you can see an area that was dedicated to that grouping of people, except African Americans.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest things that I see is we don't have a cultural bond across the board. The only way that we're going to be able to do anything economically, politically, social, economically, anything that has to do with anything, we are going to have to learn how to love each other first.
Yeah.
If we can be Republicans, we can be Democrats, you can be whatever party, but if we don't have solidarity amongst ourselves, it doesn't matter what party you're in. We're always going to lose.
Yeah. And, that's one pretty popular discussion too about how you go to other cultures and they have, Chinatown, Little
Correct.
Mexico,
Right.
things like this right there. But
Right.
here's some of the things to consider as well. We had that in the past, right? So now you talk about is it true or not true that the government systematically dismantled Black communities, intentionally, and you hear some of the more prominent names like Greenwood and other communities. But I mean,
Yeah.
is it that, or am I overstating what the issue is?
No. Okay. Okay. Let's take this into consideration. Let's say um, you're the founder of a company, the CEO, head of the board of trustees and everything. A young man comes in full of ideas, full of things in order to make things better. And he's catching the ear of everybody else that's on the board. And they're looking at him as possibly being your successor.
Mhm.
But in your mind, you ain't ready to go nowhere yet. You're going to do everything in your power in order for you to stay, in office as long as you possibly can, right?
Mm-hmm.
This country was founded by white folks for white folks. And now we have a race of individuals that were once enslaved that have the ability to take over. And we do. We have the ability to take over and run this country efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do everything in their power in order to get a stranglehold on their supremacy. And honestly, if I was white, I'd probably feel the same way too. Most of us, we don't want to agree to that, but there's a lot of people deep down inside. They feel the same way. So we really can't be mad at them. However, we have to be smarter than them in order to strategically pull our resources together. They don't have to worry about a whole lot of anything because we're not together enough in order to be a threat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is a different, but I
This is
think what
what
you're
we have to
talking
change.
about,
We have to change that mindset. What's that?
yeah. So you're talking about I think the preservation of a culture. So
Yeah,
you have no issues with the white culture or whoever, blacks, Asians, making sure that their people thrive and are and have a decent life. So I
yeah,
get that too. But I think you would probably agree that stops being okay if it's at the expense of somebody else's existence and
yes,
well-being. Yeah,
yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, nobody should have to die because they want to celebrate themselves.
yeah,
No one
yeah,
should have to die because they want to celebrate themselves. But
yeah,
we've become victims of the very system that this country. I said it for right the first time. This company, but this country has invoked, which is capitalism. We've
mhm,
been bitten by the capitalism snake. That's why we can have other cultures that come in here and they can thrive better because they weren't raised in a capitalistic society. So
meaning
what's that?
meaning
Meaning that when people come over here, they can live communally. I've seen Mexicans, they come over here and they'll live 4 or 5 families to a house, but they do that until they have enough in order to get their own. We don't have that idea. We were brought up under the capitalist society. We have to change our way of thinking in order for us to progress.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because when we talk about the woes that we're facing and some
Yes.
of the remedies for it, some people they'll state it as if it's a simple fix. Hey, we need to learn to live together, and
Yeah.
that's not an easy feat, right?
It's not at all. It is not, but we have to make a step. We have to start trying to move forward. The saying Rome wasn't built in a day. I
Yeah,
mean, this wasn't either, but we need to be more in tune with each other in order for us to move together.
yeah,
I hear people all the time saying black people, black people, black people. Well, we can't even get them to agree on anything. We have to change that mindset. I mean, somebody has got to uh, it's one of those things, everybody wants to be a leader,
yeah.
but the greatest leaders are always the best followers.
First, yeah, absolutely.
So
And
there's got to be some kind of common ground that everybody that has a difference in opinion. I mean, take the white collective. They have millions of different opinions, but they come together in order to preserve themselves, don't they?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is just the fear of not being relevant, which brings me to the next topic. We was talking earlier about the civil rights bill that
Yes.
LBJ passed, and
Yes.
I'm looking at what that accomplished. The right to vote, ending segregation, just a number of
Yeah.
other rights that it's crazy that you have to build that in to it.
Yeah.
But looking fast forward to today, is it an overstatement on my end if I say that our very existence and relevance is under attack right now?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Hmm.
In my opinion, it is.
Hmm.
What we were given the privilege to have, and it's sad that I have to say, given the privilege to have the right to vote, as if we weren't people. Well, traditionally, most of us, when we came here, we were considered as merchandise opposed to actual people.
Right.
So in that mindset, being able to give us the opportunity to vote and experience some of the same freedoms and liberties that regular Americans were had. Um, I can see the justification in a lot of that, but at the same token, to what expense is that?
Yeah.
You know, when the 13th Amendment was passed, we were given the right to vote, and we were given the rights of everyone else until Jim Crow stuck his hand in things in order to mix up. So we wind up in, if when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, if we were such a hot topic that was pressing, why was there people in Louisiana, Kansas, and Texas that still held on to their slaves and they had to forcefully go in, which is why we know, you know, uh, what 1866 is Juneteenth.
Yeah.
You know, if they really cared for our people the way that they claimed that we did. So what I'm getting at is we buy into a lot of the things, but we don't buy into ourselves.
Yeah.
We really need to think about what it is that we want. We have to figure out, you know, what's our plight as, you know, these
Yeah.
people, the new folks that are out here that, you know, 1965 is not that long ago.
Right. Right.
But if you add some of these from the what's that, the millennials all the way up to what are these uh generation who? I don't
Yeah. I
know what
know.
these people
No, the
I
younger.
don't know
Yeah.
what these younger folks. They couldn't, man, they know absolutely nothing about it and they don't understand the importance of what it took at this time. So when you hear these young folks say, "Oh, I don't care if they get rid of that," that's because they don't understand what it took in order for that to happen.
So we used the phrase earlier by design. Isn't a lot of that by design though? Now there
Yes.
is some self accountability in there, and I don't ever want to take away from the
Oh
need
yeah, we
from
have to have a
us.
tons of self accountability.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, one of the biggest things that I see as an issue, we have a lot of people that are they're whitewashing slavery.
Yeah. And what's the
They're
danger
trying
of
to
that?
what's that?
What's the danger of that?
Oh, because once you miseducate or discontinue an education of a soul, that dies. Because now, if you take something back, it's just like penmanship today. These kids aren't going to even know how to write in about another 50 years. They're not going to even know how to write. So once you start removing things, people forget. And when they forget, it never happened.
Yeah.
So
That's a
once they start erasing things from the so-called memory, you lost.
yeah.
You
And a
lost yourself.
couple things about that. You know, we know there've been a lot of hate stuff tied to hate, like the Confederate statues and all that been
Yeah.
removed. But
Yeah.
there's some other stuff in history too that are like literally strategically and systematically being removed from history books, from being taught in school. And there's this old saying that those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. I always say
Absolutely.
this, that
That's
they know
absolutely
that.
true.
So that's why sometimes they may want to remove it so they can intentionally repeat some of the things of the past. So that's why I say it's not an overstatement to say that we are intentionally trying. Some people are intentionally trying to make race of people irrelevant.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, at least try to make them think, you know, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not white. I'm trying to figure out what's the end game to them trying to remove some of this stuff from these books. There is an ulterior motive. Whatever that is, we can't allow it to happen.
yeah, yeah,
We have to have someone that, you know, I keep hearing about these people talking about gatekeepers. Well, for our culture and our society, we need some real gatekeepers because we can't allow these sorts of things to manifest.
yeah, yeah. And the thing about it, and Tamika said, right, intentional removal, i.e., from books and from schools. You're right, and it's happening. So you know, so this is I try to keep from saying his name. I call him 47. You know,
Yeah.
but when he was 45. you know, he had people in that really tried to keep the wheels on this thing and not let him go too far to the left or too far to the right. Fast forward to this year, he made sure he put loyalists in there with him that would push the limits, that would defy the rule of law, that don't mind, you know, saying the harsh, ugly things out loud and recruiting others. Because here's the thing, right? He's nothing without the people around him, right? He is but one person. He has to implement people in his cabinet, which was different from before. You know, he had people in there that put, you know, the guardrails up, if you will. But that's no longer the issue this time around.
Well, our 47th president, Mr. Tesla.
Right.
There's something big that's about to manifest in this country, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen hard. I can't speak on to when it's going to happen or if it ever does happen, but we have to keep ourselves prepared.
Yeah.
We need to educate our children. We need to educate our teenagers. We need to educate our young adults. We need to educate our older adults. Hell, somebody needs to educate me. There's more knowledge that has to be funneled amongst our people.
Yeah.
We already see the writing is on the walls. They're already whitewashing things. We have to take control of what's ours. Things that are meaningful and whole to us. We have to pass it on amongst ourselves. If we can't trust anybody else to pay the bills at your house, you have to take care of your own.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard this saying, if there's a tornado that come and ravages a neighborhood, you can't go help your neighbor right now because you have to help yourself first.
Yeah.
Then if you finish before them, you can go give them a hand. But we have to fix ourselves first before we can help anybody else.
Yeah. So let's talk about what that looks like, right? Briefly, and then we're gonna go to commercial break. When you're talking about educating our people, somebody's gonna have to make the sacrifice. And now I'm just thinking about a person like myself. You know, I have one daughter, but I got about 5 bonus daughters and nieces and nephews, right? Well, actually about 8 total. So me, you know, maybe instead of traveling and later watching sports, you're saying maybe Gerard, get out that history book, spend some time with the younger generation, educate them, get in their business, figure out what they got going on, and try to educate them. That's the kind of sacrifice that we're going to have to make as able-bodied individuals.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. I didn't know if you finished your thought. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. One of the things that I do, I like to use a lot of stories, because if you can say something that's interesting, even though you're making your point, it's able to convey the message. I like to talk, so I can talk you to death. I can talk to you about 6-7 hours and not even miss a beat. But everybody's not like me. But everybody has a story to tell. We need to figure out whatever it is our delivery method is, and we just need to do it. We have to pass this information on to our kids. And one of the things that I say, you know, we have to pass the information on to our kids, but we need to be able to have information to pass on to the kids as well. So I know that there's other historians other than myself, individuals that are other professors of different things. It's many people that are smarter than me that are out here in existence. We all need to get together. Somebody needs to come up with a collective and let's move. I mean, whether I can lead a march or a charge in one of the things, if somebody else is more equipped to be the leader than me, let's do it. I don't care. It just got to be done.
Yeah.
That's the mindset that everybody has to have. If somebody is more equipped to do a job better than me, I would be a fool to stand in the way.
Yeah. That's good.
But that's one of the biggest things that we have. Nobody wants to, you know, they don't want to succumb to somebody that's a more, you know, authoritarian in a particular piece. So I don't understand the philosophy in that.
Yeah, and we're gonna hit that on the other side of this commercial break. So we're gonna take a real quick commercial break and gonna come back and we're gonna talk about that very thing.
Right.
Your success ain't gonna happen overnight. It may take a year, it may take 2 years, it may even take 10 years. For some people, it might take even longer than that. But one thing I do know, as long as you keep fighting and staying consistent, you will make it. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you gonna make it?
Creed. Step in that water, step in that water, step in that water. Yeah. You gotta be willing to go out and get it. You gotta dive in it, go and get it. Step in that water, step in that water.
Yeah, speaking of sacrifices, this is one way we can make sacrifices by being business owners and entrepreneurs and building legacy for ourselves. And that's what this young man, Miracle Hendricks, he's the official barber for the Floor is Yours podcast. If you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, specifically the Colony, Texas, go out and reach out to get your haircut, your beard cut, and all that stuff right there. So, hey, we got a little delay. Is that you or me?
What's that?
You got two devices?
Can you see me,
Fred?
No.
Hey, so
no, sir.
Let's do this. Go out again and come back in and just see if that'll let the connection catch up with each other. All right, y'all. Appreciate everybody tuning in. So while we work through these technical difficulties, and it happens, we're gonna go through some of the comments. And again, appreciate everybody that's tuning in. Keep the comments coming, and while we get to the comments, man, I don't know why they're doing that. You got a real bad echo on your end, Fred.
It's an echo?
Yeah. And you said you only got on one, Bluetooth or anything like that,
no.
Yeah, it might just be me. Let's go ahead and push through. Maybe it's nothing. It might just be on my end. I guess Fred wants to join. Okay, so let's go read through some of these comments right here and let the audience, if you hear the echo, please let me know so we can get that figured out. But Tamika earlier, she said, right, we have to learn how to love each other. And that was based off the comment that you had. Before we can go out and do anything, we got to learn how to live in harmony with each other. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, as far as that there is concerned, absolutely. We have to, we understand that there's a flaw. We understand that there's the kink in the armor. Until that kink can be repaired, we're never going to be able to move forward. We all want the equalities that are afforded to us. We all want to be able to be substantialized about what we do. But at the same token, nobody's ever trying to get this thing together so we can prepare it. We have to do that. There can be many political parties, but if we all are separating ourselves, we have to be, we'll never be one. We'll never be on one accord. Like I said, the Republicans and the Democrats have two separate parties, and they're full of people that have the same ideologies. Now, within each one of those parties, they have different opinions about what takes place, but they all come together in order to voice what they need to do, in order to move forward with. That's what we're going to have to be able to do. We have to come together regardless of our difference in opinions. We can still come together and make one collective whole. What was that we used to have back in the 60s? The Black caucuses, when all the different cities, had constituents that came together, and they, we tried to come together as a collective whole of African Americans in this country in order to try to make our voices stronger. I don't even know if they still meet. Yeah, that's how obsolete it's become because everybody has been mandating. Like I was remember we had a couple of conversations a couple of weeks ago. I was telling you about COINTELPRO. Mm-hmm. organization, the CIA's, the FBI's program in order to dissolve any so-called interior terrorist in our country, our domestic terrorists. And it just happened to be that a majority of every African American organization that was in existence, to form consolidarity, were all dismantled by a COINTELPRO.
Yeah.
When people became in an uproar, they shut us up by giving us jobs.
Chasing the dollar.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, so let me let you respond to this next one.
Okay.
And while you're responding to it, I'm gonna jump off and see if that clears up this echo. But Tamika says also other cultures have togetherness. You kind of alluded to that earlier. Can you talk about why that seems to be the case with them and not us?
Well, one of the things that I see as far as togetherness with a lot of other cultures that come here to our country, we have something that they don't. We have the birth of greed. What I mean by that, we were born into a country that is capitalistic society.
Mm-hmm.
Our cultures, our values, and our views are different from theirs because a lot of them come from socio and economically deprived areas, and they grew up understanding a communal sense of being, whereas we were brought up on the more money, the more you have. And it eventually turns into have and have-nots. So now you're trying to tell a group of African Americans that were born in a capitalistic society that we need to stop that ideology, we need to stop that way of thinking, and we need to come together as a collective whole, and we need to each other. Yeah, they said, I'll do that as long as I still be able to maintain my own. I've seen other cultures come here to this country with little to no money. Someone that has been established will go ahead and lay families to come live with them until they are able to earn enough money to go buy their own house. When they buy their house, it's their responsibility to bring the next 4 families up. We don't have this mentality because we didn't grow up in that society. But something has to give. We have to get back to this.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're able to accomplish a lot more. Yeah, they're able to accomplish a lot more because they, what's the saying? When you come from nothing, when you come from nothing, a little more, you can't go lower than what you already would. If you don't have any money, you can't go any lower than that. So when you have people that are willing to give into that in order to help you accomplish to reach your goals, and then your responsibility, once you get your own house, your responsibility to bring the next 4 families in so they can grow. And each one of them are grabbing more people up. If we had that mentality, man, there's probably nothing that we wouldn't be able to accomplish. I mean, we already have the largest spending power in the world, the African Americans. We have the largest spending power in the world, but most of us are renting houses, renting apartments, but they got $100,000 vehicle sitting outside. I don't understand that mentality.
Yeah. What we say, chasing the bag.
Yes.
Yeah. So I appreciate everybody in the comments. They let me know that this echo is still going on. So we're gonna go ahead and push forward, start wrapping up the discussion. I hate that, but we'll have to get you back on here. But you kind of talked about some things that need to change. So I'm gonna ask you this question right here. If you could change anything about the current political system, 1 or 2 things, what would it be? And that can be either specifically for our own people or as a humanity, as a collective.
Well, it would have to be that would have to be 2 things, because in order for this political system to change, the first thing that would have to happen is they need to stop the farce about the whole political system. The Democrats and Republicans, those that are in power because they are in cahoots with each other. That whole thing is a farce, but it's okay. It's the game that the political system has to say. You see more people doing backroom shady deals with, you know, Republicans and Democrats all the time. So it's no real question of that. We need to understand what the system is and what we need to understand what the system is. Once you understand what the system is, we have a bigger understanding of what the whole game is. Once you can understand the game, then you know what you're playing. Once you know what you're playing, now you can pick strategies. But until you understand the game, there is no strategy.
Yeah. And it sounds like part of that is this greed that we got for stuff and money and status.
Yeah, I mean, so we know that the political game is what it is. It's always going to be that way until someone either breaks it up and starts a whole new system, or somebody comes in and changes.
Yeah.
So are we strong enough? I know politically I am not strong enough because I don't know all the games that they play. I mean, I know the ideas and the structures of what needs to be done, but I don't know if my moral compass would allow me to become a politician. As crazy as that may sound, but you know, there's a lot of things. So if I could help someone, you know, achieve that goal, you know, to get some things changed, if you need my assistance with something, man, I'll be trying to read what the comments said.
Yes, yes, we have to understand the game to be a true player.
That's correct. That's an absolutely true statement.
Yeah.
And there's another thing that we need to do as well as a people. I use this term a lot. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but don't nobody want to die.
Right.
We have to fall on our swords. We have to succumb to ourselves before we all are going to perish. We have to come together as a collective whole, whether it be financially, spiritually, economically, socially, all these things. We're going to have to come together regardless of our differences and our misunderstandings. We got to come together, or we are doomed as a people.
Yeah. Man, you remind me of the social media deal where these kids were saying, I think it was a Mother's Day celebration, and the kids was talking about how much they love their mother. And one of the kids said, "Mother, we love you so much we'll die." And the other one looked at him like, "Die?
Right, God, like you love your mama that much?
Yeah." So I'm saying that to say, like, it takes great sacrifice. But how many of us are willing to sacrifice, you know, the ultimate, right? And let's be honest, most of us will never have to sacrifice our life. But some of the sacrifices that we can absolutely start to do is just some ideals, you know, how we manage money, how much time we spend with each other.
Yes.
You know, man, these economic boycotts, like these things do wonders, right? When we're trying to change the trajectory of things that's going on in this country. But you know, hopefully we start doing some things over time. And sometimes it takes moments like we're in right now for your very existence and your relevance to be challenged before we say, like, you know what? Wow, I can't believe we're literally under attack right now. You know, some of the things that we're going through, I took them for granted. I'm talking about myself now. I took some of the stuff for granted, right? That I wouldn't have to worry about if I could or could not vote, you know, or if I had to worry about what he said one day he wanted to give police immunity, right? So those things right there. So I'm saying is that now that I'm seeing that, I'm evaluating my own being and doing and how much more that I can come and do. So these things right here, we do them often. Podcasts, we bring people on that, you know, that know and understand different points of views. So I think that's meaningful. But the other one is holding each other accountable, you know, especially as men. I believe the society is better when we got men standing at the forefront, you know, protecting and being and doing. So that doesn't take away from the importance of women at all. But I'm saying that I think if we do our part, that helps everyone more easily and more willing to do their parts as well. So that's just my part. And with that, I'm gonna ask you for some parting words. Give us some words of motivation or things that you know you want to leave us with before we call it quits.
Well, the only thing that I have to say to everybody is believe in whatever it is that you believe in, move forward, be diligent, but understand that there's pros and cons to everything. So please weigh out your pros and cons, you know, your pros and cons, and be responsible in your thinking. because you're not thinking just for yourself. You're thinking for a whole generation of people.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. And to the audience, I appreciate everybody tuning in. My apologies for the issues with the sound. We'll make sure we get that squared away before we bring Brother Fred back on again. But man, we got a lot to talk about. This is a long political season, and man, we're gonna make sure we're doing our part to help elevate not just us. We don't want to elevate us at the expense of others, but we want our part, and we want to be, treated fairly. And I always tell people, you can't have equality without addressing the inequities. So we want to make sure we talk about that on the next discussion if we can get you back, brother.
Hey, I want to give a shout out also to my brothers at Universal Supreme Council in 33rd and the last degree. Love you, brothers.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We got a couple comments right here. Carlika said, be responsible in your thinking. Nicole said, thank you both. That was good. Carlika said, be diligent. Tamika said, accountability is the one thing that will keep us going strong and together. But so many resist. You're right, Tamika. It takes great sacrifice when you're talking about accountability. So my big bro from the Army, Derek Duncan, he said accountability and responsibility as well. And he said, we can't let them burn down the Black Wall Streets. You're right. As we begin, I know people are making waves and starting businesses and bringing people in. And it might not look like was traditional or what happened in the past, like Wall Street, but there are conferences going on where people are helping and educating the masses, and those things need to continue too. So
absolutely.
Yeah. But other than that, we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Remember, we always say the floor is yours. Thank you for commenting. And remember, this information is only good if we can reach the people. So help us by sharing the page, subscribing if you haven't, and liking all the pages too. Go and search the Floor is Yours podcast on all platforms and follow us so you can see what's going on next. Brother Fred, man, I appreciate you, man. I can't say thank you enough. Yeah.
I'll be glad to come back anytime, man. You just call me and I'll be here.
Oh, yeah, we're going to do it, man. We're going to do it. So, hey, we'll go ahead and play this outro. And after the outro, we'll say our final goodbye.
Won't need another, this one here really do it for you.
Baby, look at it. Yeah, baby, I mean it. Baby, come down to it. Let me show you how to do it. All
right, Brother Fred, I'm going to hold you to it, man. We'll bring you back here in the next few weeks, right?
I'm ready, man. Whenever you need me, call me.
All right, man. You take care. Good night, everyone.
All right.